Kyle Rittenhouse's not guilty verdict changed all that. In the end, America watched the criminal justice system and 12 brave jurors who recognized their responsibility and the oath they took. They based their verdict on the law and the facts. America breathed a sigh of relief because Lady Justice was blind to the claims of the liars and the social justice warriors, and only heard the facts, the law, and the evidence. Thank God the jurors had the courage, the strength, and the integrity to return a verdict consistent with the truth. And thank God that they reinforced our fundamental faith in the American criminal justice system. And that's my open. Joining me now, criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool, who has been one of the leading legal voices analyzing this trial from day one. But, Brian, I'll go to you. What was the moment when you kind of came out of your comfort zone and you thought you knew everything and then things changed?
Well, Judge, the cross-examination of Gage Grosskreutz, when he said that he pointed his gun at Rittenhouse before Rittenhouse shot. Now, when I heard that testimony, at that moment in my brain, I said to myself, this is a flat-out farce. This is a complete categorical abuse of the justice system. I knew at that moment that this was just a stunt, that this was just a political playground for these prosecutors to promote a radical social agenda.
Case, Brian, that would be brought against the president. What do you think? I think Kyle has a great case for defamation. What do you think?
Well, given the political climate and given this Hollywood script that President Biden, all these media outlets, and all these crazy left radicals tried to propagate in this case, this wasn't a script. This was a real human being who took the stand and who stood up for himself and was vindicated. And guess what? He might have a civil case for defamation. Here's why. It requires a statement. Well, Biden went out and called him a white supremacist, right? That's a statement. It needs to be published. Well, the whole world saw it. He's a president of the United States. And then it has to be untrue. Well, that was just proven in a court of law. Here's the key element, Judge, that Rittenhouse would have to prove, that it was done with malice because President Biden is a public figure. It requires malice aforethought. But guess what? I mean, Rittenhouse has a shot at that because there's really no reasonable basis for Biden to make that comment because he had no information, no evidence to even make that comment. The investigation hadn't even been done.
All right. Let me add to that. They had his cell phone. They had all the information as to whether or not he was on the internet trying to join these organizations in a militia. They had all that, and there was nothing. I mean, the kid was a good kid who was a police explorer, a fire cadet, a lifeguard, and someone who was a medic. Okay, but let me ask you, Brian, my last question. Malicious prosecution. I didn't like that prosecutor. He would never work for me. I mean, he's pointing a gun basically in the courtroom with his finger in the trigger well. Is there a case for malicious prosecution?
There could very well be. I've done a little bit of research on this because I was so outraged by this circus in that courtroom. And I think there might be a case for Kyle Rittenhouse to file a civil rights action against these prosecutors for two key reasons. One is prosecutors can't have any reasonable basis to bring these charges. Well, with respect to Huber and with respect to Grosskreutz, there clearly should not have been charges brought based on the videotape alone. And then real quickly, the other issue is, were these charges brought for purposes of another reason? And that gets to the political aspect that you've been talking about, that these charges were brought for political reasons, not to promote justice.
Hey, look, 48 hours, less than 48 hours, you didn't even have any of the toxicology back from the autopsies.
Exactly.
I mean, anyway, guys, Mark Aragos, Brian Claypool, thanks so much for being with us tonight.